As of this recording in September of 2019, I've been in the business for just over 4 years now. I've met hundreds of people in this space, some of which have some pretty creative strategies. Most of which, however, have very similar strategies and then constantly complain they can't find any good deals. If you're the latter, how do you lift yourself out of that? The goal of this episode is to help shed some light on how many options you do have. Knowing your options will help you build a unique strategy. With that differentiated strategy and some patience, you stand a chance to not only just get started and to survive, but also to thrive. Let's begin.
Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
When I started off, I was just a naive 20-something with the exact same cookie-cutter strategy you hear everyone regurgitate. And people did call me out on that, and I did not enjoy that. However, I adapted. As of this recording, Ian and I have been a part of 10 transactions spanning over 1,000 lots. And you can do that too. The key for us was just being brutally honest with ourselves, and then carving out our niche within a niche. The format of this episode will be different than usual. It'll lay out the pros and cons of each category of mobile home park. From there, even if you already have your own unique strategy, you might be able to look a bit differently at properties you didn't consider before. Chapter 1. Small Parks. We'll call a small park anything below 30 lots. Pros. Most people don't want small mobile home parks. With lower demand comes lower prices. But it's more than just attractive pricing. You also stand a chance at more attractive locations, utilities, and quality. A lot of brokers aren't interested either. Think about it. If a broker charges 6% and a small property is about as much work as a large property, why would a broker with strong deal flow take on a smaller property? The answer is they wouldn't. And it makes sense. 6% of a $400,000 transaction is $24,000, whereas 6% of a $4 million transaction is $240,000. Even if a broker agrees to just a 3% fee on that $4 million deal, that's 5 times the commission of the smaller deal. Smaller parks can mean less to manage, less liability to worry about, less landscape to groom, and so on. If scale is your goal, you stand a chance with smaller parks. I know someone that had over 100 lots in the same MSA and put all properties under contract at a whopping $30,000 per pad, even though no single mobile home park had over 25 lots. Cons. Scaling up a portfolio of small mobile home parks, although possible, is a logistical nightmare, consisting of long drives between properties, different municipalities to contend with, and increased difficulty in finding debt. Let me reiterate the debt piece. Most lenders don't want to touch small loans. That means a near guarantee of recourse debt, lower loan to value, and worse overall terms like holding park-owned homes as collateral, restricting you from converting them to tenant-owned homes. Lower loan to value forces you to raise more equity capital, meaning you're risking more of your and your investors' cash, as well as limiting your cash-on-cash returns. Finding a quality manager might prove extremely difficult, meaning you're likely doing a lot of the work yourself. Think about it. If you have a $10 per occupied pad manager for a 20-lot park, that's only $200 per month. How many truly talented people out there want to crush it for you for $200 a month? Workload actually can be just as intense for a medium-sized property, especially if you're opting for a turnaround small park. Losing one tenant is devastating. For example, where losing one tenant in a 100-lot park is 1% of your base, losing one tenant in a 10-lot park is 10%. Best case scenario, you aren't making that much money. 20 lots paying $300 per month is only $6,000 per month in gross revenue, or $72,000 per year. Minus expenses and debt payments, you're looking at maybe $20,000 to $30,000 per year in dividends. And that's only if nothing goes wrong. If a tree falls, a septic fails, you have to replace a home, etc., then you don't have much room for error. Expense ratios in general will be higher, since expense ratios are calculated using gross revenue than in lower lot rent areas. With costs generally being fixed across most markets, you'll experience higher expense ratios. Your exit will be more difficult. Since demand for smaller mobile home parks isn't nearly as strong, you will have less potential buyers, meaning it will be harder to sell and will likely trade for lower prices. Worse, you may get stuck and not be able to exit. Conclusion: smaller properties have a lower barrier of entry, but for obvious, less attractive reasons. The returns are smaller, the risks are higher, the exit is more difficult, and the upside has a lower ceiling. If you are struggling to get started, buy a smaller park. You need to be finding ways to take action. The difference between owning 0 mobile home parks and 1 mobile home park is monumental. Don't write off smaller properties as you are beginning. Chapter 2. Medium-sized parks. Let's say medium-sized parks consist of anything between 30 and 150 lots. Pros: unlike smaller properties, losing one tenant won't kill your revenue. Super low cost of capital. Wall Street money likely won't compete with you. You start to hit some serious economies of scale. Cash flow can now fund random calamities like trees falling and infrastructure failing without wiping out your annual dividends. Your exits and refinances become much easier and much more lucrative. Finding good debt starts to become easier, and you start seeing non-recourse options at the $2 million plus properties. Cons: good luck finding a reasonably priced one. About everyone I know looks for medium-sized parks. Once small to medium-sized syndicators realize they can't compete with Wall Street money on the bigger properties, they turn their attention to the medium-sized properties, bidding them into oblivion. I know operators with over 10,000 pads completely willing to buy 50-lot parks. Sure, you may not be competing with Wall Street, but you are not far off. Management starts to really become much more intensive, meaning you'll have to have know-how and skills to execute. Good third-party management options still prove scarce, especially if you don't have scale in an area. If you struggle to find and keep good employees, you might end up buying yourself another job. Conclusion: as we scale up, everything gets bigger. The bills get bigger. The headaches get bigger. The competition gets bigger. The workload gets bigger. And yes, the returns get bigger. If you want to scale a business and you have the know-how and investors, medium-sized properties provide a reasonable way you can scale up, as Wall Street money will consistently beat you on the bigger properties, and the smaller properties just don't produce sizable enough returns without massive scale. Chapter 3. Large parks. We'll call large parks anything 150 up. Pros. Large parks can hit some absurdly low expense ratios when stabilized. Raising rents even just $10 can amount to adding hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to the value of the property based on an NOI valuation. Random issues like excessive garbage or abandoned homes amount to be mere hiccups relative to significant gross revenues. For example, $1,000 in pothole fixes cost the same, regardless if the size of the park is large or small. But in a small property, grossing only $6,000 per month, that's devastating. Whereas a large park grossing over $200 per month may not even get noticed. Buying something even at a 4 cap and then selling it at a 3 cap in scale results in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in profits. You can now afford really good property management. Exits, depending on location, can be extremely easy and unbelievably lucrative. One of these parks, literally just one of these parks, could bankroll your entire family's retirement. Cons. Liability is out of control. The bigger your property, the bigger your tenants think your pockets are, and the more likely you are going to have issues like random lawsuits, crime, tenant disputes, rule breakers, unsolicited salespeople, etc. If it wasn't clear from earlier, once a larger property hits the market, Wall Street buyers will bid these properties into oblivion. Supply is low and demand is high. The attractive parks of this size available today are usually only available in unaffordably expensive portfolios or in deep value-add parks requiring tons of capital or in poor markets. Conclusion. Everyone who hears the mobile home park hype story wants larger mobile home parks. And they should. All the advantages this industry offers can be realized in droves on larger properties. But your competition will crush you with low cost of capital. You'll be competing with groups you didn't even know were interested in mobile home parks, like REITs, fund managers from other real estate disciplines, desperate to place capital, and even just some rich guy that inherited money and heard mobile home parks were great investments. Part 2. Park Quality. Chapter 1. One-star properties. You'll know you're in a one-star property when you don't even want to get out of your car. Pros. Most syndicators won't touch these, meaning more reasonable prices. I am not advocating being a slumlord, but if that was your end game, I would recommend you exclusively focus on these properties. The people don't expect much. It's really sad. Please, operate these assets responsibly. However, because folks don't expect much, doing things for them means the absolute world to them. If you put in the time, you can raise a 1-star to a 2-star or maybe even a 3-star, yielding some serious returns for everyone involved, including the tenants. Cons. Raising a 1-star to a 2-star requires serious amounts of time and capital, which can completely remove the advantage of a lower purchase price. Surrounding and adjacent properties may be so sketchy and low quality that even with improving your park's quality, you may be forever stuck in a bad area. And why would someone want to buy a $40,000 new single wide in a bad area? Also, a lot of these parks have lots that are too small to accommodate even just newer homes. there's a good chance the city will be against you the whole way, no matter what. Even if you demonstrate that you're making a difference, if they want to redevelop the property into a different use, even your best efforts may prove completely fruitless. Governments have unlimited pockets. You don't. One-star properties are usually some of the oldest, meaning the infrastructure is likely ancient. Think about it. If the owner has run a community into the ground, they've likely also ignored the infrastructure. It's tough convincing investors to buy a one-star property, and most won't be interested, period. Your lender will likely drive the property before closing. If you have to think twice before getting out of your car, and you do this for a living, imagine how your banker would react. Securing attractive debt will prove very difficult. Crime may be a serious issue. I've had my life threatened before. Give the episode The Death Threat another listen. Although it may not be you on site, you may be thrusting someone else into serious danger. Lower demand for these parks means lower exit prices. It could also mean getting stuck with a completely unsalvageable property. Conclusion: if you struggle finding reasonably priced deals, be extra careful of the trap lower quality assets set. Like buying anything cheap, you get what you pay for. It's riskier to operate, to exit, and sometimes even to visit. If you have serious skill, patient capital, and capacity for a time-consuming project, these may prove very lucrative for all parties involved. Chapter 2. Imagine a mobile home park. What came to mind? Likely a 2 or 3 star asset. Most mobile home parks fall into this category. Pros: Wall Street usually won't compete with you on a 2-star asset, although they may for a turnaround 3-star asset, meaning you stand a chance to grab one. Unlike 1-star properties, investors are all over 2 and 3-star properties, so finding money, at least nowadays, in this frothy market isn't difficult. Bringing in new homes will upgrade the community, and you should have demand for new homes if you selected a good market. You start seeing some attractive debt on these assets. Cons: everyone wants these properties. You'll be competing with newbies on up to operators with 10,000 or more pads. Increased competition means decreased returns. Super attractive debt can be difficult, if not impossible, to obtain. Sorry, slumlords, but unlike a 1-star property, your tenants do start expecting certain living standards and will leave if you mistreat them. Raising park quality still requires a ton of capital, potentially crushing cash-on-cash returns. Conclusion: whether you like it or not, you likely will only ever play in this arena. 4 and 5-star properties will be overpriced, and unless you have serious skill and capital, I wouldn't recommend chasing 1-star properties. That leaves us here. Chapter 3. 4 and 5-star properties. These communities start to look like middle-class housing developments. Some 5-star communities are essentially resorts. Pros: you will have access to some of the most attractive financing. Your investor base becomes essentially anyone even remotely interested in mobile home parks. Your exit becomes much easier as the buyer pool increases dramatically. You can charge more for lot rent. You have access to better, more expensive property managers. Cons: maintenance and upkeep start becoming expensive and essential. Your tenant base may be much more limited. While dropping a 2-star to a 1-star will require active effort on your part, your inaction or incompetence can quickly and easily drop a 5-star to a 4-star. Tenants expect more. So unlike a 3-star and below, you cannot get away with being a slumlord, period. Higher pricing means less buyers, potentially making it more difficult to exit during tough economic climates. Higher pricing also means more limited returns. Conclusion. To a certain degree, these perform and have different requirements, almost to the level of being a completely different asset class. Yes, big-time money can be made here. But if you study mobile home park history, you'll see decades of examples of large private companies gobbling these assets up only to lose their shirts during a downturn. I'm going to cut this episode off here. Part 2 of this episode will consist of park location analysis, workload, and miscellaneous. If this episode excited you with possibilities, you just might be a strategy fiend. Ian, my business partner, loves thinking strategy, and it helps. So long as you can craft a core strategy that's different and effective. Tune in to part 2 for more. Would having my due diligence list help you? If so, I will let you have it for free. That's right, my list that took me years to develop and includes plenty of lessons from mistakes that I made that now you can avoid. All absolutely free. All I ask for in exchange is leave me a 5-star review and a comment. Screenshot your comment when it goes live and email it to me via my website at archimedesgrp.com. Then, let's connect. I thoroughly enjoy helping all people, new and experienced, and I don't expect anything in return. Don't wait. Reach out. I'm looking forward to chatting soon.